Dear learners, welcome to the today's online session. Myself, Dr. Abdul Kareem, Faculty of Sciences, IGNOU. Today, we will be discussing about biochemistry. That is, especially we are going to focus on the definition of biochemistry and also we will be knowing about biomolecules. In this session, we will be mainly focusing about types of biomolecules, significance of biomolecules, and also scope and importance of biochemistry. Let us begin with the first topic of the today's session. Why we are discussing this topic, biochemistry and as well as molecules of life. If you see, molecules of life is one of the core courses of biochemistry. And here at IGNOU, we are offering BSc Honours in Biochemistry. And moreover, those students who are pursuing any basic and applied biosciences programs will be helpful with this session. Hence, we are discussing about molecules of life in this topic. Coming to the context, today's context is here we are discussing about biochemistry and how it is explaining the origin of life and also how these biomolecules are formed, that is formation of biomolecules. The formation of biomolecules takes place from simple atoms to complex molecules. Okay, and these complex molecules further help the organisms to maintain the life. Learners, here it is interesting to know that the aim of biochemists is to explain the mechanisms responsible for metabolic reactions occurring in a living cell. Moving further, the foundation of biochemistry is based on understanding the molecules of life, that is biomolecules. If you look at the term biomolecules is itself defining that bio means life and molecule. That means the molecule which is responsible for the maintenance of life. And in every living system, living cell, you will find these biomolecules. Okay, and you will be surprised to know that the remarkable properties of biomolecules, especially in living organisms, arise because of thousands of different reactions that are taking place among these biomolecules. That's why the name itself says biomolecules. Yeah, coming to the core objective of the subject, that is biochemistry. Since we are discussing in this session about both biochemistry and as well as the biomolecules. So that's why here if you look into the core objective of biochemistry is to understand the characteristic nature, properties and functions of biomolecules. This can be considered as one of the core objective of this subject. Moving further, let us just try to understand again and define the term biochemistry. Biochemistry can be defined as chemistry of life and living systems. That means by this time I think you might have got the very idea of biochemistry. That is, it is having both chemistry and as well as biology part. Okay, mixing of these two subjects together will be a new area of study that is called biochemistry. Here, as I said earlier, this biochemistry deals with chemical reactions and those reactions that are occurring in a living cell and living organism. Here, my dear friends, just to recollect you, we all know that the organisms that are made up of like fundamental units called cell. Cell to tissue, tissue to organs, organs to systems, systems further develop into a complete organism. So that's why when we are talking about this biochemistry and biomolecules, so we are talking about the life that is present inside a living cell, nothing but in an organism. Okay, that is interesting and important to remember. And moving further, Since we are talking about these both biochemistry and as well as biomolecules, here let us take a small pause and discuss about the interdisciplinary nature of the biochemistry. Okay, so why I am saying this word interdisciplinary? Because if you recall your previous education from your schooling and your college systems, here we are having subjects like chemistry, biology, physics, mathematics. Okay, but when it comes for the biochemistry, here biochemistry is drawing the information from chemistry as well as the basic principles of biology, and biochemistry is taking the help from physics principles, and in the field of biochemistry we will be using mathematics modeling also. That's why if you say this biochemistry has interdisciplinary nature, the reason being means this is drawing the principles and information from all other core allied science subjects. Okay, and just to discuss more into this topic, if you look into the what is called as the scope and as well as the nature of biochemistry, so biochemistry is helping and answering the issues related to medical sciences, biological sciences, that is the basic biological sciences like botany and zoology, and apart from that biochemistry is playing a crucial role in the area of biotechnology. Okay, and my dear friends, the new developments in this area of biochemistry are like molecular biology, molecular genetics, and as well as bioinformatics. So, with these brief inputs here, by this time you came to know that the biochemistry is such a subject which is taking the clues from the basic sciences and answering the unanswered questions in the field of the biology. Okay, that's why we call this subject as interdisciplinary in its nature. Moving further, here the subject of biochemistry, as we said, deals with understanding the nature and structure and functioning of biomolecules. And if we recall the scope and as well as the importance, okay, biochemistry will help you to answer the background of diseases. For example, if one is having a sound knowledge of metabolism of carbohydrates, he can answer the reasons for the diabetes. Similarly, we know that lipids are responsible for obesity. So there are so many other factors which are influencing obesity, but one of the major reason for the obesity is because of the high fat diet and as well as the abnormality in the lipid metabolism. So why I am specifically emphasizing on these two diseases like diabetes and obesity, because these two we call them as lifestyle disorders. And my dear friends, here it is important to know that these two, especially diabetes and as well as obesity, these two diseases are associated with the biomolecules like carbohydrates and as well as lipids. Hence, so the knowledge of biochemistry will help you to answer the reasons and causes for the diseases. Moving further, since we have started our discussion by taking information like biomolecules and as well as the biochemistry background. Okay, so here if you look at the composition of an human body, the human body is composed of like water, proteins, lipids, carbohydrates and minerals. Okay, and it is here interesting to know that the percentage of water is around 61, you may say, and whereas proteins is around 71 and lipids is 13%, carbohydrates around 1 to 2% and minerals is around 6%. Why I am revealing all this data to you is the reason being, see, since we are answering the living systems and we are trying to understand the living system and life inside a human being, even animals also. But the thing is here, we need to know the composition of the human body. As I said, the composition is mainly maintained by water and other biomolecules. Here, let's discuss more about the biomolecule. You might be surprised to know that these biomolecules are originated, produced, you may say, composed of non-living things. That's why in some of the reference books it is mentioned that these biomolecules are originated from non-living things to living things. Let us see how it is happening here. See, if you see the non-living things like elements, okay, and these elements like carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, sulfur, okay, so these are the non-living inorganic chemical elements which we are referring them as non-living. The reason being they are sharing the common properties of physical, chemical and other characteristics of a non-living, or you may call them as lifeless materials. But when these lifeless materials, elements, when they arrange together, when they join together, when they interact with one another, what is happening? They are going to produce biomolecules. And these biomolecules like carbohydrates, proteins, nucleic acids and lipids. So, as I started my discussion like non-living to living things. Okay, elements forming molecules. And now these molecules means here I mean to say biomolecules. Now these biomolecules are interacting with each other and they are responsible for the maintenance of life in a living cell. So this is how a non-living element, chemical element, is contributing to the formation of a living system. That's why we call the elements, or that is inorganic elements, are indirectly contributing the formation of biomolecules. Moving further, as I said, the inorganic elements like carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, phosphate, sulfur. So these are some of the inorganic elements. Again, if you go and look into the nature of the molecule that is being produced by these inorganic elements, they are like, for example, from carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, you will get organic compounds, especially carbohydrates. Okay, and if you go for again carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, including phosphate and sulfur, then you will get proteins. And you will also get what is called your fatty acids, that is lipids. And you will also get the nitrogenous bases, which are the fundamental units for the formation of DNA and RNA. So here what I am trying to convey you is the synthesis of biomolecules which are responsible for the maintenance of life inside a living system is being done by the inorganic elements. So inorganic elements are giving a lead to form organic material, and this organic material upon interaction it is going to form a biomolecule which is internally, indirectly responsible for the maintenance of life inside a living system. So it is so interesting to know about this subject. Moving further, to know more about biomolecules, let us just see a bit of these elements. Like you may say the carbon. Carbon is responsible for the synthesis of organic compounds. Organic compounds like proteins, carbohydrates, lipids and nucleic acids. The carbon is a major backbone in all these biomolecules which I just now mentioned. And apart from the carbon, there is hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen which are forming the other support structure. Okay, so as I said, these inorganic elements, when they arrange in a systemic manner, they are going to form molecules. Okay, and moving further, sulfur. Sulfur is also responsible for the formation of sulfur containing amino acids, and here the word amino acid is a fundamental unit for the formation of proteins. This is nothing but a basic unit. As in the case of life, cell is a basic unit. In the case of proteins, amino acid is a basic unit. Okay, so apart from these biomolecules like carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids, we also have some other biomolecules, like you may call them like vitamins. Okay, and along with these vitamins, there are enzymes which are biocatalysts. They are also helping in the maintenance of life. And here it is important to remember that along with these biomolecules, we need to have the macronutrients and micronutrients. Why? Because these macro and micronutrients are composed of like certain minerals. For example, like calcium, phosphorus, chloride, potassium. So all these are some of the important minerals that are required to maintain the homeostasis as well as the balance and the life inside a living system. Okay, so as we all by this time we know that this what is called as chloride is responsible for the osmosis, and as well as potassium, and calcium is mainly required for the formation of bones and teeth. Okay, and your copper, magnesium, these are certain what is called as minerals which are responsible for and act as a cofactors in so many metabolic reactions. Okay, so that's why as we are discussing about biomolecules, just it is important to know about the elements and as well as the minerals that are playing key role and supporting the life inside a living system. So coming here, as we are discussing about these biomolecules, let us just discuss about the important functions performed by these biomolecules. As we said, we now for time being we will discuss about carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. Okay, so based on the carbohydrates, for example, if you see diet also, our diet is rich in carbohydrates, starch especially. Okay, and these carbohydrates are the primary source of energy. Okay, whenever our body requires energy, our body depends on the glucose, majorly glucose as an energy source, and this glucose is derived from starch, and starch is nothing but a carbohydrate. Okay, and the other major biomolecule and its function, for example, protein. So protein is responsible for the formation of structural components like your myosin and actin. And remember, these both actin and myosin are the proteins that are responsible for the formation of muscle. Okay, and similarly keratin. Keratin is a protein that is present in your hair. And apart from that, proteins are playing a key role in the formation of new cells, and the growth of the body also depends on the availability and intake of protein as a dietary source. Apart from that, proteins are having so many important functions, like your hemoglobin is made up of a type of protein, and your blood clotting factors, they are also made up of proteins. Enzymes, they are also made up of proteins. So like this, carbohydrates are responsible for the energy production, proteins are responsible for the maintenance of growth and health of your body. Moving further, let us know something about lipids. Okay, lipids are nothing but a energy source. Okay, and there are so many types of lipids which we will know in the further sessions, coming sessions. But however, for time being, the lipids are mainly responsible for the formation of cell membranes. See, my dear friends, when we are discussing about the life, we said that cell is the basic unit of life. Here, the cell integrity and the structure of the cell is maintained by the plasma membrane. This plasma membrane is nothing but a compound wall, a boundary that is protecting your cell. Okay, and this plasma membrane is made up of phospholipids. and phospholipid is a type of lipid. That means we can say that lipids acting as both energy sources and as well as they are acting as structural components. Okay, and it is important to know that these lipids are responsible for the maintenance of body temperature. Okay, and coming to the last biomolecule, that is nucleic acid. As we know, nucleic acids are made up of nitrogenous bases. Okay, so there are two types of nitrogenous bases like purines and pyrimidines. However, these nitrogenous bases, both the purines and pyrimidines, combine with each other and they form the structures called as nucleic acids. And these nucleic acids like DNA and RNA. We all know that, so DNA is a double helical structure. RNA is a single helical structure. But the important point here to know is, as we are discussing about the functions of biomolecules, the nucleic acids are responsible for heredity. That means they carry the information from one generation to the next generation. That's why they call as hereditary factors. Okay, so this is all about the different types of biomolecules starting from carbohydrates, proteins, lipids and nucleic acids. Up to now, we have discussed about what is biochemistry and what is biomolecules. Now, up to this part is that the biomolecules are composed of inorganic elements. One thing to be remembered, and these inorganic elements are going to form biomolecules, and biomolecules are responsible for the maintenance of life. Let us discuss something about biochemistry, because in the beginning itself we mentioned that today you will be knowing about both biomolecules and as well as the significance of biochemistry and scope and importance of the biochemistry. We know by this time we know that biochemistry is an interdisciplinary subject. Not only that, biochemistry is becoming a common subject and common area of research in all the bioscience related subjects. Why? Why? Because see, in all the living systems, it may be a plant, it may be an animal. Okay, the central dogma of life, that is common. So central dogma of life means nothing but the flow of information. Okay, so when you call flow of information, that means DNA, DNA to RNA, RNA to protein. So when DNA is replicating to produce another new DNA, that is called as replication. That means one DNA to another DNA. That is parental DNA to daughter DNA, you may call it as. And this DNA further undergoes a process called transcription to produce RNA. And RNA further produces proteins, translation. Here the intention is the biochemistry is a common tool to understand the central dogma of life. And biochemistry becoming a core area of research in all allied sciences, especially the life sciences, the biosciences. Moving further, as I said in the beginning itself, biochemistry is an interdisciplinary subject. Why? Because if you look like subjects called genetics, microbiology, biotechnology, medicinal chemistry, clinical chemistry, okay, plant and animal physiology, molecular biology, genetic engineering, all these subjects, they are dealing one way or other way with the biomolecules. And these biomolecules are better understood with the help of the knowledge of fundamental biochemistry. That's why we call this subject as interdisciplinary, and it is connecting all the fields of applied sciences and biological sciences. Moving further here, in the field of biochemistry, we will be studying about metabolisms, which is an important area to be learned. Metabolisms include both anabolism and as well as catabolism. Okay, that means anabolism stands for synthesis, catabolism stands for breakdown. Okay, the study of these two, anabolism and catabolism, commonly known as metabolism. Through these metabolisms only we will produce our energy. Then we will be discussing about bioenergetics, about ATP, about body energies. Okay, so the knowledge of biochemistry is helping you to understand the central dogma of life, and it is helping you to understand the energetics of your body. And apart from that, the biochemistry will help you to understand the immune reactions of your body, that is molecular interactions of your body can be understood. Okay, and apart from that, the applied areas of biochemistry, if you look into, biochemistry will help you to understand the nutrition aspects, like the role of vitamins, the role of minerals, and what is a balanced diet, what is the recommended dietary allowance, what will happen if you have excess amount of carbohydrate, excess amount of glucose in your body, excess amount of lipids in your blood. Okay, so all these related information, like both clinical biochemistry and as well as nutritional biochemistry, these two can be answered with the help of subject biochemistry. Not only that, if you go and see in the industry like pharma industry, research and development is mainly depend on the biophysical techniques. That means, so far we have discussed about biomolecules, but when it comes for the isolation, separation, purification of these biomolecules, it is possible with the help of the knowledge of biophysical techniques and biochemical techniques. And these two techniques can be easily performed if you have a sound knowledge of biomolecules. Okay, so like this, biochemistry and biomolecules and its allied areas, they are interlinked with each other. And one more important upcoming area in the field of biochemistry is bioinformatics. Okay, in this bioinformatics, we will be using computers, servers, and we are going to store the biological data, biological information that is obtained by performing the experiments in the research labs, and we are going to store that information in the computer databases. And whenever we want, we can retrieve the data from those computer databases, and we can use them for understanding and designing new models, new proteins, new medicines can be designed. Okay, so like this, to perform all these studies, as I said in the beginning, central dogma of research and as well as metabolism, clinical biochemistry, nutritional biochemistry, and your pharma, that is like biochemical techniques and biophysical techniques, and also to perform computational biology, that is nothing but bioinformatics, we need to have a sound knowledge of subject biochemistry. This way, biochemistry will answer the unanswered questions by using the tools of various fields of subjects and applied biosciences. Yeah, dear friends, as I said, one of the aims of this today's session is to know the scope of biochemistry. So biochemistry will provide you the structure and nature of biomolecules. That means one with the knowledge of biochemistry is able to describe the molecular interactions that are taking place inside a living system. And the another area is like another important application you can say here is biochemistry will provide you the fundamental knowledge about the life. And biochemistry will also help you to understand the life at molecular level. Okay, and also the another you can say the emerging branch is diagnosis and monitoring treatment. This can be achieved with the help of biochemistry. So this is the broad scope of the subject biochemistry. Moving further, as we said, the biochemistry field is having vast applications, be it agriculture, be it clinical diagnosis, it may be a pharma industry, okay, it may be developing new vaccines. All these fields are associated with the knowledge of biochemistry. That means why I am emphasizing on the scope of biochemistry and importance of biochemistry means the one who is pursuing BSc biochemistry and even above that BSc like MSc and then doing PhD in biochemistry, they can go and contribute to all these areas that are associated with biochemistry. And coming further, what is the future of a biochemist? Okay, for example, if you see, one with undergraduate program with biochemistry can go as a technician. Okay, for suppose the student continues his biochemistry and further goes into MSc in biochemistry, that is PG program in biochemistry, he or she can become a researcher and they can go as a research scientist in any industry, even in the research labs. And if the student is interested, they may pursue further studies like doctoral studies. They may go to do PhD also. And after pursuing PhD, they may establish their own industry or else they may go as an academician and even they can go as a scientist in various research labs across the country. So if you look into the scope of biochemistry and future of a biochemist, with undergraduation, you can become a technician. With post-graduation, you can become a researcher and you can establish yourself as a good scientist. If you are going to pursue PhD, you will be having a good career like a R&D research scientist and as well as academician in any of the research institutes and in universities. Okay, so with this brief background, just I would like to inform the learners that at IGNOU we are offering BSc Honours in Biochemistry and as well as PhD in Biochemistry. Dear learners, so far we have discussed about biomolecules and the scope of biochemistry. I hope you have enjoyed this session and wish you all the best. Thank you once again.